You don't feel ready because you're not that person yet. Not the disciplined version, not the consistent one, not the one who follows through without negotiating with themselves. And that's the part most people never accept. They assume readiness comes first, but it doesn't. Readiness is something you build, not something you find. That feeling you keep waiting for, that moment where everything clicks, where you suddenly think, this is who I am now. It doesn't happen like that, because at the beginning, nothing feels aligned. You don't recognize yourself in what you're trying to do. You sit down to do something important, and it feels slightly forced. You try to be consistent, and it feels unnatural. That's what throws people off. They think, this can't be me, but what's actually happening is simple. It doesn't feel like you because it's no longer your old pattern, but it's not your new one yet either. You're in the space where the old way doesn't fit anymore, but the new way hasn't settled yet. That doesn't mean you're failing. It just means you're in transition. Every change starts with a gap between what you used to do automatically and what you're now trying to do on purpose. In that gap, everything feels slightly off. Not wrong, just unfamiliar. You notice it in small moments. You hesitate before starting. You delay things you said mattered. You feel resistance even with the things you want to do. So you assume something is wrong. But nothing's wrong. You're just doing something you haven't done often enough for it to feel normal yet. And when you step outside what's familiar, things feel uncertain for a while. This is where most people stop. Not at failure, not at difficulty, but at unfamiliarity, because you act outside your usual patterns. It can feel like you're forcing it, like you're pretending to be someone you're not. So when you try to change, it feels uncomfortable, it feels inconsistent, it feels unnatural. And instead of staying there long enough for it to settle, you go back to what feels automatic, even if that version is exactly what you're trying to leave behind. Your mind doesn't care as much about progress as you think. What it wants is familiarity, what it can predict, what it already understands. So it pulls you back. Old routines, old reactions, old versions of yourself. Not because they're better, but because they're known. The things you've done 1,000 times feel easy, even when they're the things holding you back. And over time, those patterns start to feel like who you are. The shift into a new identity doesn't feel powerful. It feels awkward, feels messy, inconsistent. You don't suddenly become disciplined. You act like a disciplined person while still feeling like the old version of yourself. That's the part most people don't expect. You're behaving like the person you want to become before it feels like who you are. And that's why it feels strange. Not because it's wrong, because it's unfamiliar. Most people misread this stage. They think if it doesn't feel natural, it's not working. But that's exactly what keeps them stuck. Because almost everything that feels natural now was unfamiliar once. People talk about identity like it's something you discover, but most of the time, it's something you repeat. Every action tells your mind what to expect from you. And over time, those expectations become your identity. Not instantly, not through intention alone, through repetition. The more you do something, the less resistance you feel. And eventually, what once felt difficult starts to feel like you. That's how identity changes, quietly through repetition. At some point it becomes clear. You're not stuck, you're not broken, you're not incapable of change. You're just in the stage where the new way still feels unfamiliar. And once you see that, the question changes. It's no longer, do I feel like this is me? It becomes, can I keep showing up long enough for it to become me? Because the discomfort won't last forever, but what you build during it might. You don't feel ready because you're still measuring yourself against the version of you that has years of repetition behind it. Of course that feels more natural. You've lived it longer. You've repeated it more. But naturally, doesn't mean right. It just means familiar. And if you wait to feel ready before you act, you'll always return to the version of you with the most history, not the one with the most potential. So the question was never, am I ready? It was, can I keep going while it still feels unfamiliar? Because eventually, the discomfort fades. Not all at once, slowly. And a new way starts to feel normal. What once felt forced starts to feel like you. And one day you realise you became the person you were waiting to feel like. Not because the feeling came first, but because you stayed long enough for it to catch up. And that's how change actually happens. Quietly. One repetition at a time.